Hey everyone, it's Greg. It's episode 22 of Unbreakable Spirits. And thanks for tuning in. I wanted to talk today. These two subjects are kind of related. So um, I was listening to the radio the other day, and somebody said, uh, we're talking about, oh, it was a truck driver on, that's right. And he was on talk radio, and he was talking about Citizens Band Radio, CB radio. And one of the hosts said, "What is a CB? What is a CB radio?" I wanted that just perked me up right away. It's like CB radio. He doesn't know what a CB radio is. I had to comment because CB radio was a big part of my life at one time. Um, back in the mid 70s, it's a little like the 80s, CB radio was a fad, was a trend in America. For those who don't remember, Google it, look it up. It was pretty popular. Everybody had a CB. It was pretty cool. And the movie Smokey and the Bandit with Burt Reynolds, that was that really popularized the fad, the trend of having a CB. Where it came into my life was a group of truck drivers heard about my situation, that I was pretty much homebound. Uh, so some local friends in Phoenixville, they all got together and thought it'd be a cool idea to get me a CB. I had never known what a CB was before. Um, and when I got one, I was scared to use it. I really didn't know what to do with it. I was pretty shy when I was a kid, and so when I got the CB, it really forced me to interact with other people. It really was a way to reach out into the world, just like social media is now, and podcasts, things like that. So when you think of CB radio, think of it as an early edition of social media, um, because it really was. Um, the concept was you either had a CB radio in your car, which most people did at the time, and they would cruise around and talk on the CB. I mean, it was the whole thing was kind of useless in one way, but in another way, it did help people connect and communicate. And think about it today, right? Communication. Sometimes we lack a lot of communication in our world. And having CB radio might be a great thing nowadays, You, you couldn't see the other person. All you could hear was the voice. And so you didn't know whether they were old or young, uh, tall or thin, uh, short or, or, or heavy set. I mean, you didn't know whether they were black and white or what religion. It didn't matter. That's what I'm trying to say. It didn't matter. I mean, everybody was on the CB radio and having fun, you know? It didn't matter. Um, so where it came into my life after I got the CB, I met a lot of friends, which was cool. A lot of local people. My CB was, it was okay. It wasn't the most powerful one. It kind of got to be stupid. It kind of got to be a competition back in the day. Who had the biggest CB, the most powerful CB? You had different microphones from handheld to what they call power mics, which would just be very, very powerful. And the antennas, if someone had a taller antenna or had a home down CB, what they call the base set, as opposed to a mobile set, um, you could put that antenna on top of your roof and just boom away, you know. Um, we had there were so many characters on the CB. It was almost like a book, you know, uh, like a, like a drama or something. I mean, you had comedy and drama, you had all kinds of characters on there with different handles. You know, instead of using your first name or your name, you just pick a handle. And most of the time, the handle was related to you. And a lot of times it was the opposite. So if you had a really tall guy, you might call himself Shorty or something. My handle was, the first handle I had was China Boy. And it wasn't because I was Asian. It was because um, it was because of my brittle bones. You know, after a while, I switched my handle. I don't know why I did, but I decided to switch from China Boy to Smitty, which was, I thought, pretty cool at the time. Um, and uh, and it caught on. So I got to be known as Smitty around the CB world. Um, it was a lot of fun. You got to, not only could I talk to people in Phoenixville, but around the area, you know. Um, and on a clear, starry night, you could talk. I could reach all the way out. And again, my CB wasn't that powerful, but on a really clear night, when not too many people were on the airwaves, I could reach out and hear people as far away as the Midwest, like Indiana, and try to talk to them. Um, so it was a lot of fun. For me, it was a way of hearing, listening to people. A lot of nights I remember I would be up just with the CD on, just listening. You know, Channel 19 was the truckers channel. So you would hear the truckers coming in and out of town, you know, and Channel 9 was the emergency channel. You kind of stayed off of that and not fooled around. We did a lot of fooling around on the CB. The FCC was sort of the nemesis at the time. And so you weren't allowed to play music, of course, you weren't allowed to swear, but a lot of people did anyway. And uh, I had local friends, you know, one was called Wanderer and the other one was called Skate Man and Catman. Uh, they were all, most of them were younger than me. I was about 20 at the time, I guess. I think a lot of teenagers, but they were fun to hang around with. You know, they would talk about music. Some would play music on the air. That wasn't allowed. And we had our own jargon. You know, CBers had I once got a book about the CB language at the time. You know, 1010, 1020 meant Roger, you know, breaker, that sort of stuff. So it was all, you know, kind of silly looking back on it, but it was fun, you know. And as I said, it got me out in the world. Um, I would listen at night. I would do a lot of talking to my friends in the evenings, and I wasn't lonely. You know, a lot of times back then I was lonely. I had gotten out of school, and I was still trying to find out what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't sure, you know, is so you know, not being able to get out, the world was still pretty inaccessible back then. A lot of steps and a lot of tight curves. Uh, and I didn't drive, which is another fault, and which I'll talk about some other time. But I did it, and that really increased my lack of mobility, and you know, I was didn't have too many friends, and so the CB was a way of getting out in the world and making friends, and that's what it was intended for when the truckers got it for me, you know. So so it's kind of cool, one, a personal note. I'll never forget the CD because it was through the CD where I found my first girlfriend. I did. Uh, uh, I actually forget what her name was, but she was a little younger than me. And I think her handle was Fox, something Fox, Brown Fox or Silver Fox. So anyway, I heard her talking one night on Channel 20, and I was just flipping around the dials like I usually did. I had a 23 channel CD, and but you could get a 40 channel or high. And that was kind of the competition. Um, but I had a basic one, and I was flipping around one night, and I remember I heard this really pretty voice in channel 20, and she was talking to somebody. I forget who it was. And I just went in there, and I had kind of a reputation of being, I wouldn't say a smart aleck. I was kind of funny, I guess. Sometimes a float. A little bit of a romantic, although I didn't have a girlfriend. So I just heard her voice and I chatted in there and I said hello, which was amazing for me. Uh, See how I was pretty shy. And anyway, when she got done talking to the person she was talking to, we started talking and we got along. I found out that she lived nearby on the other side of Valley Forge Park, which was only 10, 15 minutes away from me. I found out that she was out of high school and she was an interior designer. Yeah. And she worked part-time at the King of Prussia Mall and a candle store. And she sounded really fun, funny. I had no idea what she was doing. And she kind of flirted with beats at the um, and one thing you don't do, you never gave out the phone number on the air because you never know who was listening. Could have been 1,000 people listening, just sitting there listening. A lot of people did that with their CDs. But actually, I was always too shy, even if I contacted a girl or something to make a date, That was just, I was afraid of disability, and she wanted to meet me. And I don't know if it was the first night we talked with them, but it was soon after. And I said, I just kept putting it off and putting it off. And she kept after me. In fact, one of the lines I remember, plus she was a military decorator, I said something like, oh, boy, I need my bedroom. I need my bedroom redecorated. Can you come over and help? And I was just teasing. And she said, sure. What are you doing later? Uh-oh. Nope. And I got myself in trouble. So I was like, what did you just do? Anyway, to make a long story short, I ended up, she came over and I opened the door, and here was this gorgeous, tall brunette, long brown hair, big, big eyes, green eyes, and she was gorgeous. And I was like, this is the person I've been talking to for the last few days. I couldn't believe it. And, I thought she was just going to turn away and leave. Because that's happened before. People find out that I'm really in a wheelchair and they just turn and left. So, but she didn't. She stayed. She kept dropping by and dropping by and dropping by. And sooner or later, I had a girlfriend. So that was fun. My mom at the time, she was like, all right, just don't get hurt. And she meant more than just the like physical situation, my brittle bones. She meant don't get your heart broken, you know. And for about a month or so, I had fun. Probably more than that. We went out for maybe a couple months, and and I had fun because she got me out in the world. She wasn't afraid to throw my wheelchair in the back seat of her little car, and off we went. And so instead of listening to other people cruising on Friday night, we were cruising. And I actually, the first time I ever went to a movie theater was with her, with Fox. It was 1985, and I remember the movie was Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox, and which was hot, like the big summer movie. And I couldn't get over it. The reason I never went to the movies before was because a lot of the movie theaters where I lived were inaccessible. They had steps to get into. And the other reason was, other than my mom or a brother or something, I had no other one to go to the movies with. So here I was, in my 20s, and it was the first movie I ever went to. Can you believe it? And so it was a Friday night, and I could still smell the popcorn in the lobby, and, all the people gathering, and a lot of younger people, and it was just exciting. And I was like, so this is what I've been missing, And seeing the movie was great. I loved Back to the Future. I still do. And Michael J. Fox. And I was just in awe of it. If you've ever seen the movie The Green Mile with Tom Hanks, who's another favorite, there's a segment in that movie where one of the inmates, who Tom Hanks works in prison, had never seen a movie before. And they show him a movie with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers dancing, and he is just in awe and can't take his eyes off the screen. It's the greatest thing that he's ever seen in his life. Well, that's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt when I went to the movies for the first time with her. So we had a lot of fun together. We went out to dinner. It was just a fun time in my life. I felt normal, probably a good way to describe it. I felt like a normal guy. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how to go out to dinner with a girl, how to. It was just a normal thing, It just felt like I was a normal person for a while. Even learned about sex a little, but I'll talk about that. This is a G-rated podcast. Anyway, it was fun. So the CB radio was special to me because it was a big part of my life for a while. In fact, that's how I found out that John Lennon was killed. I was on the CB talking to a friend, skate band, and he told me, "Did you hear about John Lennon?" I said, "Oh, yeah." Of course, I was a big Beatles fan. I turned on Monday Night Football, and I heard Howard Purcell talk about it, and that's how I got the news. It was millions and millions of people did, that John Lennon was shot, and then he was dead, he was killed. So CB radio, CB radio was actually the first taste I had of discrimination and prejudice because I had a disability. A lot of people didn't know I was in a wheelchair. And I kept it that way, go on. I wanted to be just like everybody else. So I kept it that way. I just, if they found out, they found out. Well, eventually, it came out not only in conversation, but people wondered who I was, just like being the box in school, the intercom system I told you about last time. Well, people were interested to move me, so they would come over. I remember we had a CD picnic one time, and all the local CDs got together, and we had a picnic down the river, and it was a fun time. It was great to meet everyone, put a face to a voice. And my problem was I kind of didn't want to go because I felt comfortable hiding behind the CD, you know. I know sometimes, um, people can think of you differently, uh, based on your race or disability in one case. And so, once people found out that I was in a wheelchair, sometimes they treated me differently, and you could tell. I could tell in the way we talked to them. My true friends on the radio didn't treat me differently. And the ones who did, well, that's okay. They weren't true friends anyway. But uh, I did discover um, discrimination due to CV. There were a few people on the radio who found out that I was in a wheelchair, and they would come on the channel when they heard me on and call me names. And there was one kind of really crazy guy who would park his mobile uh, down the block for me and key up his microphone for hours, so I wouldn't be able to talk uh, over him. So uh, I think a lot of times it was jealousy, as I had friends on the air, or it was just because some people are just mean. I don't know. I can't explain it. But so that was a little dose of reality too. So, the CD really meant a lot to me because it was just a part of life. It was another chapter in my life, and it was the good and the bad, more good than bad. I actually would still have a CD today, but my antenna on the roof, it was always put up wrong, and it eventually started leaning like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And we had a really bad thunderstorm one summer, really windy, and came crashing down into the backyard. And that was the end of my CB career. And I never had the urge to put it back up again, get a new one. Different other things were coming into my life, school and work and different other hobbies. So, but for the time it lasted, CB radio was an important part of my life. The other thing I wanted to talk about before I leave is this kind of goes with it. I wanted to do this maybe once a week or so. I have tons of books. The other day it was World Book Day, and I love to read. And rather than talk about my book or the book I'm working on now, it's fun to talk about other books. So I wanted to share maybe a book a week with you guys, and maybe I'll give you some inspiration to read. And a lot of books I like to read are biography, and I love to read about other people, and especially celebrities, and just how they came to be, Have bios on Paul Newman and Jackie Gleason and a lot of the old time stars, people that I really admired, and still do. But here was one that I found in the bookcase. I haven't read it for a while, but I'm still going to reread it. it ties into what we're talking about. It's Burt Reynolds. There you go. It's called But Enough About Me. And of course, Burt Reynolds was the lead actor in the Smokey and the Bandit in 1977. And that was a fun movie. It if you get a chance to watch it, do so, because not only is it a fun movie to watch, but it reflects a time back in the 70s that no longer exists. It was sort of a carefree time back then. And again, and a lot of it had to do with the CD radio, so it sort of ties in. But Burt Reynolds, I always thought he was a good actor. He was the top box office draw in America, and maybe also in the world, for 5 straight years. Can you believe that? 5 straight years. And he made a lot of the same kind of movies, like Smokey the Bandit, Gator, White Lightning, a lot of the car chase movies, things like that, you know. But one of my favorite Burt Reynolds movies is The Longest Yard, the original Longest Yard, and about football, about prisoners, cons behind the Georgia prison who get together and form a football team, and they take on the guards. And it's their way of paying back the guards who were really brutal to these guys. And in the sort of a payback movie, it's a funny movie, and it's a good movie. The ending still always gets me. I won't give away the ending. The ending has a little twist to it, and it's great. It's a 10 times better movie than the Adam Sandler remake of The Longest Yard. Don't even watch that one. I watched that on an airplane one time going to California, and I hated it. Of course, you know, like most times when you do a remake, it never turns out to be as good as the original. It's just leave it alone, right? Anyway, Burt Reynolds, that was one of my favorite Burt Reynolds movies. I loved him when he was on with Johnny Carson late at night. And he just had a way about him. You know, the guys back in the end wanted to be like Burt Reynolds. I think that's when the mustaches started becoming in vogue. And he was just a cool guy, you know, and Paul Newman, Steve McQueen kind of vein. And what I love about this book too, it's very honest. It's funny and it's honest. And he does it in a different way. Instead of chapter 1, chapter 2, it's the chapters are named for people. And he wanted to, in the foreword, he says, he wanted the book to be about people who touched his life, you know, and so instead of like chapter 4, it's Dinah Shore, or some of the other people that he talks about in here, Jim Brown, you know, Bing Crosby or something. But it's a fun read. No matter how old you are, learn a little bit about Burt Reynolds. You know, he just passed away not that long ago, a few years ago. And so if you get a chance to read it, do so. So that's me to that, talking about CD radios and talking about Burt Reynolds, and I'll pick out some more of my favorite books down the road and recommend them and talk about them a little bit too. So, okay, well, I just wanted to say hello and pop in. It's another beautiful April day here in Pennsylvania. I hope it's beautiful wherever you are too. It's quite a week coming up. Tomorrow we go for flowers. There's a local nursery about an hour or so away in Lancaster, beautiful Lancaster, the Dutch country. And there's a nursery there that's a lot cheaper and a lot beautiful, tons of flowers. And so this is the one day out of the year that I bookmark, put on my calendar. get the flowers, my flowers for my lawn and my garden, and don't plant them yet. Don't plant them until Mother's Day, because here in eastern Pennsylvania, we could still get a frost. So get the flowers and set them aside and plant them then. So I can't wait. And there's Butter, he gets a haircut. I Bud, really sweet until they both grow up. And Thursday, on to my first Phillies game of the year. Always in the Seattle Mariners. They don't come this way very often. So I'm looking forward to seeing Mariners and Julio Rodriguez and, of course, the Phillies. And the NFL draft. See what the Eagles do. There you go, Bill Burns. So, a big week here at the Smith House. So, thanks for stopping in and watching Unbreakable Spirits. I hope you enjoy the podcast as much as I do, and hearing about some things some memories that we share together. So I will see you guys later. Take care, okay? And catch me on Twitter. And if you have a question or if you would like to be on the show, just to chat, just please hit me up and say hello, okay? Meet a lot of new friends on Twitter. It's a crazy time to be on there with all this nonsense about the check marks. I'm glad I never had a check mark. Glad I did. So, see you guys, maybe. Take care.